Alright, pleasant good night to all and to the viewers of our Wednesday night installment edition. Again, as World Changers Assembly, we want to say a very hearty welcome and greetings to all who are joining us, both local and foreign, who are joining us tonight, again, for another installment of World Changers Assembly's Wednesday night forum. In these forums, we discuss several topics, several things over the years, over the past few months since the COVID sessions. We have been dealing with subjects like men topics, we have dealt with the young people, we have dealt with women, we have dealt with Sunday school children and several different topics. Tonight we are going to look at a particular issue that affects our society very, very, very much. And we want you to join us, we want you to stay tuned in, and we want you to see how you can learn or benefit, as it will, from tonight's session. We are going to speak tonight about the topic addiction. And when we say addiction, we are speaking tonight about any form of addiction, being dependent, being unable to detach from some kind of habit or substance or activity or some kind of behavior that a number of times the behaviors are harmful. So that the addiction a number of times looked at from a negative point of view. Of course, we will agree that there are positive addictions, if you want to call it that. The addictions that can lead to positive lifestyles. For example, if I'm addicted to love someone, or if I'm addicted to a good habit such as smiling, or if I'm addicted to a good habit such as reading my Bible, or I'm addicted to a good habit, then those habits are going to benefit me. And I'm going to grow as a person. But a number of times, when we speak to addiction, especially in the wider society, we are looking at the harmful addictions that affect humans' life and family and interactions and so on. Those addictions come in the form of drugs, come in the form of gambling, come in the form of several forms, sexual immorality, sometimes smoking, and the list could be inexhaustive. So tonight, we have some people with us on the set, straight from World Changers Assembly as usual. We pull some folks, we are a very resourceful assembly, a very resourceful group of people here. And I'm going to just introduce them to you, and they will be sharing along with us tonight on their experience with addictions and addicted people in their space. And even tonight we have a gentleman who's going to share his real experience being addicted to a particular substance and how he managed to be free from that addiction. Now that's something you'd want to listen to and get very much involved in as well. So on my right, and the only young lady on the set is Miss Sidel Mitchell. Guys, Sidel Mitchell is working with the, help me again. Right, she's a psychiatric mental health nurse, and she's working with the patients and the folks who would have found themselves in that institution that is in St. Anne's, Marlborough? Yes, great. So, stationed in St. Anne's, Marlborough. St. Anne's, you know, most of the times when we as Trinidadians say about St. Anne's, when we send into St. Anne's and you go on St. Anne's, you know what we are thinking? You're thinking you're going to the madhouse. So she's working in a madhouse. And she's going to treat with us, tell us tonight how many of the patients or the folks who find themselves in that institution ended up there a number of times because of addiction and so on. On her right, we have Brother Nixon Ganga. And he's a gentleman right from our community right here. He's going to share with us his experience in direct substance abuse and how he managed to get addicted to some substance in his life, even when he was very young. And he's going to tell us his experience as we go along. On my left here, we have Brother Richard Khan. He is also from the Assembly, and he is working in the prison service of Trinidad and Tobago. A number of years there, a senior man there right now. Yeah? Senior officer in the prison service. And he will have had a vast experience with, as you would appreciate, guys and girls who would have found themselves in that institution because of addiction again, and addiction of all kinds of sorts. So he's going to share on that. And on his left, we have Brother Gregory Ramdas. He is going to share from a perspective of addiction in family life. Now we know too well that addiction interferes with the person individually, yes, but it doesn't stop there. Addiction manifests itself and touches the lives of every person that addicted person is attached to, and so he's going to share from that perspective as well. So we welcome you again tonight. We want you to stay attached to us, glued, call someone, invite someone, call up a friend, a neighbor, family, tell them come on and listen up to a very, very interesting topic tonight on addiction. Maybe you in your family may have someone, friend or probably a co-worker, some person that you know that is struggling with particular substance abuse or some particular addiction to some activity or some behavior. And you may want to call them and say, well, tune in tonight because we are going to be offering not only information, but we'll be offering some strong advice and some strong directives where you can find some solutions. So tune in, call someone, and again, if you would have missed this live broadcast, we invite you to that you can always tune in again and replay the broadcast, replay it at any time for the benefit of all who may want to tune in. Alright, so we're going to go straight into our discussion tonight, and we're going to start with, I'm going to start with the gentleman of mine, Brother Richard Khan. And he's going to give us a perspective of what addiction does to folks to such an extent that they find themselves landed in prison, incarcerated within a space. So let me just allow him to speak as he shared with us.
Hello, good night everyone. My name is Richard, a prison officer for the past 20 odd years. But in my experience as an officer, I have noticed that most persons within the criminal justice system or the prisons, they have some affiliation with some sort of addiction. I don't have the stats quite clearly, but it's quite a lot, a huge number. And persons, you work in this system and that you see a person's their addictions has brought them from where they were at a high standard and bring them down to nothing. I mean nothing. And they come into prison, some of them on the streets, and this addiction just have them helpless. And the thing about addiction is that if you don't realize that you have a problem and you need help, there is no way you can get help. Because someone addicted to drugs, to alcohol, to gambling, though it might seem within themselves, if they don't come to that point of reality to realize that, hello, there is a problem here. And if there's a problem, you didn't get there in one day or one night. It took time. And they need help. No one man can do this by themselves. Because we just can't say, okay, I am strong and I will just fight. Some persons fight for years to overcome addiction. Unless some need divine intervention, we need social intervention, all those social programs that can come in, we need counseling, we need so many things. But within the prison service, prison system, there are lots of folks that are addicted to substances. Some starting from way young people. And you know, I have an experience that, you know, there was a young man once, and when he spoke to me, he got addicted to cocaine at the age of 13. And I was like, wow, 13? You know, we may, out in society, we may not really understand, but at 13, you haven't started living yet.
Let me interrupt you as you mentioned that point. Very interesting point. You said at 13, did he share with you how at 13, which is our age, you're supposed to be in school or attached to some kind of family, did he share with you how that substance was made available to him, how he got that addiction?
Well, that was the amazing thing. He dropped off from primary school. He stopped primary school at the age of 8. Right? But his father was addicted to alcohol. He was an alcoholic. And he used to get real licks, and he shared with me some of the experiences. And at the age of 12, he started smoking cigarettes, but wrong company, because his father no care. He addicted, he drinking alcohol, black is white, morning, noon, night, he care, he didn't eat, then eat. So his mother started sending him with a young man in the area to do wakaring. Right? And the young man, unknowing to the mother wasn't aware that he was addicted to cocaine. But he didn't start cocaine at first. He started with marijuana. The young man said, well, yeah, take a smoke. When you're done, by the time you're done smoke that in a while, we finish it, we mashing up this one. And you know, and he smoked for about a week or so. He smoked the weed, and the young man put the cocaine in the weed, from a black cigarette. And the same young man that he went to work with to earn $1 to help himself and his family. You know, and that was it. He get hooked, not knowing, he just get hooked, and he couldn't help himself. He started stealing, he started doing everything to get that. That landed him in prison.
That was one of the next questions I was about to ask you. In that, yes, a number of the guys in the prison system would be there because of the addiction to whether it's gambling, drugs, cocaine, you know, whatever it is. But a number of times they would not be in prison because of the drugs per se. It would be because of what they are doing to get the drug, yes?
Yes, correct. Yeah,
explain what some of these things that they have to do to get the drugs that would land them in prison.
And they have to steal, because if you can't work for it, most times those persons are not skilled. Even if they are skilled, so as I said, this addiction will bring you right down. Because there are many persons that had good jobs and they lose their job because, okay, they're smoking, they're drinking, some days they can't turn out to work, so they're missing days. The boss don't want that. So the boss would say, well, boy, are you looking for somebody more serious? And you know, you get fired. Now you're looking, hustling. You're hustling for food, you're hustling for clothes. You're hustling to maintain that vice that you have, that substance abuse problem that you have, you're working for that.
So that addiction becomes the #1 priority in their life.
Over everything else.
Over everything. So they don't have the job anymore, which brings in the money that would have supported the addiction. And now the addiction remains still #1. They still have to feed it. The money is not there. So an alternative have to be found, which would be a number of times.
Resort to crime. Some sort of crime.
Okay.
Stealing, whatever. Stealing cars, robbing people, breaking and entering.
Oh, okay.
And there's only one road that will lead you.
Yeah. And when they will have this young man or these gentlemen, the ladies too, I suspect, they found themselves out of the job, they found themselves engaging in some criminal activity to get the money. They've landed in jail. Now, well, hopefully, or obviously, they're not able to get the substance in the jail. But the addiction remains. How do they deal with that?
Well, some, when they came in, they admit their problem to the authorities, and there are counselors and there are social workers that are assigned to these persons.
Yeah.
That the system will try to place them into rehab, and they will send them to a rehab program and see that when they come out of prison, that they will have some sort of intervention and help
Okay.
to sort of guide them away from that habit.
Oh, so are you saying then, that's maybe some information for us here who may not be aware of that. Are you saying that once someone gets into the prison system who is addicted to some kind of substance, and I'm supposing it's substance abuse versus gambling or versus other issues, is it automatic that they are sent to a rehab, or is it that they have to ask for some kind of help, or how does the system work?
Well, the system works in such a way that everyone is screened. When you enter, they would ask certain questions if you use drugs, whatever.
Okay.
And with that assessment, they would see where you at and if you are desirous of help. Because sometimes they're not desirous of help.
Okay.
They decide, well, okay, I have come in prison, this is 6 months, 8 months, I will take a rest. And when I go back out, there's more peace.
Okay, take a rest meaning what? They are able to stay away from the substance in that 6
away
months?
from the substance for that time. Let the body catch back themselves, because some of them, they come in pretty much out of it. And they get enough rest because they're not resting, they're not eating properly.
Okay.
So after that time they have spent, they will have gathered back their strength, their body come back.
But that brings me to another question. If they are able to stay away on their own, or well, not so much on their own, because they are incarcerated, they have no option. If they are able to stay away from the substance, say 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, they are in jail. Does it mean that the addiction wasn't strong enough, or is it that they decided, let me just continue doing it? Because I'm saying, if they're able to stay away from this stuff because they're in jail, why are they not able to stay away from this stuff when they're not in jail?
In some instances, the environment that they're in, because some of them live close to the drug block. Some of them are even pushers.
Oh.
So when you go back out, that's your hustle. If you have no other skill that you can go by, you'll fall back to the easiest thing. And the easiest thing is the wrong thing to do. Always the easiest thing.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of friends and family who went in prison and came out. Most of them would say for that time they was getting drugs and cigarettes and everything normal.
That's a good question, and it's one that we wanted to raise. And we hear that happening in society. I'm not going to put you on the spot to ask you how it happens, when and where. We are not going to go into that discussion at all. But we are, and not only Trinidad, that seems to be a universal thing all over prisons, where there is an availability of not just drugs, but contraband stuff, whether it is food. But that's not our point of discussion tonight. But is it true that some folks get access to some drugs in prison?
That is quite true.
Oh, that's all we're going to just say to right here.
Concerning a rehabilitation system, then as far as I knew, there wasn't anything put in place in any prison system to rehabilitate anybody then, because most of the people I knew came out and would say
they didn't get any option for rehabilitation.
Yeah, I mean to say that that's the.
That you're speaking about, was that a recent thing or just something some years ago?
That happened from years ago. But most times people will come and say, have no help, but there is help.
Oh.
There is help. You need to seek it out.
Also, the person has to make some kind of movement?
Exactly.
Oh, so it's not automatic?
No.
Oh.
It would be assessed.
Oh.
However, as I said, if you are willing.
Oh, okay, so the person has to probably show some indication
some interest.
And say, well, look, I need this help or I want this help kind of thing. And a number of times, to reach that point is the next story by itself. So, for that, very much thanks, Brother Richard, for sharing in terms of how prison life and drugs and what land them there and how they deal with it. So, you who are listening to us, it's possible that you may have a friend, again, some family member who may have landed themselves in jail or in some kind of prison sentence or some time. And you may be asking what kind of things happen. I'm sure tonight you'd have gotten some enlightenment into what goes on in the system to a point and how they can get some kind of help inside of there and what kind of experiences coming from senior prison officer here is happening. We want to move on to the lady in our set tonight. And like we mentioned earlier on, she is going to bring a perspective of addiction from even a next level where in the prison there is some mental issues because, you know, it is strong. Addiction always interferes with your intellectual or mental. But at her level where she's experiencing, she's going to bring it from a perspective where folks are finding themselves in an institution where they are no longer able to manage their grades. So we're going to ask Ms. Mitchell Sister Mitchell to share with us from that perspective.
So pleasant good night again. My name is Sidel Mitchell. I'm a registered mental nurse attached to Northwest Regional Health Authorities. Presently stationed at St. Anne's Hospital for the last 8+ years. So tonight is my pleasure to be here. Well, from our front, well, basically what we have there is patients with coming. Most of the time they have reached a point that they will be experiencing some type of mental, some type of psychotic disorder, or something would be happening, either depression or psychosis, meaning that, I don't know if you know that or heard about somebody who would say that they see the green man running. Everybody, you know, would have heard that somewhere. So it's not only people who would probably smoke marijuana would experience that. We have alcohol as well, and there's, you know, many other drugs that are available, both counter prescription drugs that people could become addicted to. So my experience is...
Before you go on, and you are triggering something up in my mind as you say that. But keep your thoughts before we're going to continue. I'm just interrupting you for a while. You're saying that apart from drugs that we know, we call drugs, marijuana, cocaine, all those things. You are saying there are prescription drugs that people get addicted to.
Yes, there is.
Just give us a little insight into that, what you may be in your experiences.
Sleep aids.
Sleep aids.
Like, what we would say Valium. You would have things like Ativan, Clonazepam. These are things that people become addicted to. Codeine linkers.
What does these do for them? Does it give you the same high that cocaine does, or is it just a behavior? Just
Some of them will fall under suppressants. Because according to whatever it is the person is experiencing, remember, you don't want to be a bit much. But you just want to feel that high, that you know, feeling of euphoria at times. So it's not only things like marijuana could give you that feeling. Okay, so...
Alright, great. Well, go ahead.
And recently, I don't know if you all know about these Zesapil.
We have heard about that, yeah.
Right? And these things are available. They look all pretty, like Smarties. Yes, it does look pretty. But it's very harmful to an individual.
Wow.
So, in my experience, I have seen, you know, as Brother Richard said, you know, young people coming in. It doesn't have an age barrier. There isn't a sex barrier if you're male, female. We have seen different people coming, and I mean, people who you would think would have position in society that would have that knowledge that, you know, you should stay away from this. These things aren't good for you. I had one recently, you know, they started to make, because they have now decriminalized marijuana. So we have people trying like the brownies. These things are being sold at schools. So our children are being exposed to it. So we have a lot of teaching to do as well. Right? And you look at the long-term effect. Now, some people might think that they could smoke marijuana or they could drink a lot of alcohol and, you know, be normal. Okay, so it may not affect you now. But when you look at the long-term effect, you know, it's there. You'd see behavioral changes, you would see mood changes, you would see changes that you would have within your home. Normally, daddy is an approachable person. And you know, you don't approach daddy because daddy is always a little grumpy. Also, at times, you know, he would be very loving because, you know, he have that high. You know, so when you look at the effects on the family life as well, with this, I had an experience with a young man, very intelligent young man, this gentleman. He said he started as well at the age of 13 going to a prestigious school, it was accessible. These children, a lot of them have money. They have access to things that we don't have. You know, if you grow up poor in the country, and you know, you don't know about these things, so he was exposed to it at an early age. He started to use. He went on, he did 4 or 5 very well, and then he went on to university. At the university level now, he went to Jamaica, and when you know they would have about the different grades of marijuana that he would not have been exposed to here. And he went across there, and the mother had to go for him. Yeah. And he, since then, has not been able to catch himself. In his mind, thinks that he could do it. And even though we would offer counseling services and things, at the end of the day, it's individual. It's what you do want. Because
that keeps coming back in.
the treatment modalities is something that is voluntary. I can't force you to do something that, you know, is really good for yourself.
But they went at that stage though, I mean interrupt you again. Both that wanting it is happening in both cases, we hear that coming up. But how, when you're addicted, you are not your normal self, you are not in control of your normal, you know, logical thoughts and so on. So for you to sit down and decide, I want to be off the substance, or I want to be off this addiction. Especially if you find yourself in prison or in that institution in St. Anne's there. What does it take, or what kind of strategy do you all use in St. Anne's there to get somebody to think or know that they need help? Because when they get in there, it's hardly likely they will come and say, I need help. Does that happen, or is it something that you all have to?
So I asked what we would normally do on admission, right? We have doctors, which would be in our admission and assessment, right? You're aware of assessment and admission. When they come in. And on the admission process, you know, the doctor will do according to the patient's mental state at that particular time. They would be admitted. On admission, we would, according to their behavior, now, the aim is not to have that person being exposed to antipsychotic medication. But because of the nature of when they come in at that particular time, you have no choice. Because sometimes they're very aggressive, they unsettle, they be pacing up and down, they confrontational, and you don't want to upset your space because it does have a ripple effect on the other patients. So we would allow them to settle, and we do a lot of teaching. One-on-one teaching, we have psychologists according to what is the problem that the person is experiencing. Social issues, we have social workers attached to St. Anne's as well. We have our psychiatrists, right? So they would normally give a diagnosis. We use the DSM method to diagnose our patients. So according to what any criteria they meet, we would diagnose them thereafter. So we will try and put things in place to do a lot of teaching. One-on-one teaching, we send them to psychologists, whatever is necessary for that person at that time. So when we assess, we do thoroughly. So, we'll introduce the person. If you're willing, right, we have SAPTC, which is located in Cora. Now, if this person is really interested, because it's a voluntary, as I keep saying.
So it's voluntary, and after that stage, it's still voluntary?
It is voluntary because you can't force somebody.
So you did your assessment, you did your analysis from psychologists, from all these people. They realize that the person is gone, the person is totally dependent. They are not so much in themselves capable of making a rational decision whether they're willing or they're unwilling.
So at that point, they won't be. When we allow them to settle, you won't do that within 2 days of the admission. You'll allow that person to settle. So the psychosis and anything that they would be experiencing, if it's depression, whichever end of the spectrum they're experiencing at that time, we will allow them to settle. To come back within their normal thinking method. Right? So when they reach that stage, it's up to them now want to stop, if the choice is yours. We do referrals, which would send them to Cora if they are interested.
And if they say
If they're
no,
interested in it, no problem.
if they say no, I only
Then we
decide.
would have the revolving door syndrome.
Which is
Because
what?
this now would be another person would come, that same person will be coming back a few months.
So
from
wait,
then.
so they say no, what do you all do? You send them out?
We have no choice, you can't keep them.
You can't keep them.
No.
Okay,
Because remember,
so this
the
person is,
the person is settled. So it would be as though we keeping them against her, but because the person is settled,
I mean, they said, you mean?
meaning that they're not displaying any behavior that they would have come in on admission.
Oh, okay, so what would have caused that change in behavior? You know what I'm saying? So they come in, let's say somebody come in raging mad, they violent, they're aggressive, they totally addicted to this drug and they need to get it and they're being aggressive and violent. You all did the assessment and did all the thing and then you put them there for 2 days.
So we have treatment modalities for that as well.
Uh-huh.
So what you're looking at, we will have to introduce antipsychotics.
What exactly is that to the person who is listening? What's an antipsychotic? Is it something that...
It's something that would help change the mood and behavior.
Okay, can I sedate the person?
Pardon?
Is that kind of sedative to make the person
But
look...
we have the sedatives that would come there as well.
Okay.
So you will have the antipsychotic because the behavior that they would be exhibiting at that particular time
Will require...
they would be needing it. Because
Too
as
long.
I said, it's not just a person coming off the street and saying, listen, I need help. I know that I'm addicted. We will have a different forum.
Oh,
So
okay.
they would go to Cora
Oh,
where
that's
they
a
would
different
seek
person.
that help. Because Cora on a Thursday from 8, I believe, that's when they have walking patients.
Oh, somebody goes in there and they get
Yes,
help.
so that's
Yeah.
our substance abuse program that we have there.
But that's for somebody who admitted.
Correct.
You talking now, we just speaking now the person's
No,
already.
it's not an admission yet, you know. This person would go there on a Tuesday morning, so basically what they do there is like didactics. They would educate the person, they would do occupational therapy, show the
Mm.
person, okay, here's what. Instead of smoking, you could do something that you like. If it's some type
Buy
of
some
craft
activity or something.
or art,
Yeah.
whatever you choose to do. So it's like diversional therapy.
Okay.
Right, it's to take them away. Their
That is for the
mind
person
away.
who goes to Cora, and that's the
Right, so
person
that's
who
Cora.
is willing.
Yes.
I still want to dwell on the person who is not so willing and who is not going to so readily accept this, treat
But
this.
that person would, unfortunately, what I have seen in the past, that person would be coming back to St. Anne's at another time because they don't have that insight yet.
Oh,
Right? So that's what they lack. They lack insight to know that, listen, I need help. Right? And this help is there.
But
because
they're
we
not
have NGOs, non-governmental organizations,
willing to.
who as well, I don't know if you know how the power.
Yes, yes, you know about that, yeah.
The one that goes on
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
You know, this is supposed to be what they are there for as well. You have to be there,
But it's still available.
but it's available.
All right. Well, we know this topic is a very, very, very exhaustive topic in terms of what substance abuse can do and how it affects. But we want to now again go to a third perspective of how substance abuse affects someone directly, and we have, like I said earlier on, but Nixon Ganga is going to share with us how he experienced direct substance abuse and what it did to his growing up, to his life, and how he managed to deal with it up to this point in his life. So let me turn you over to Brother Nixon to address that issue.
Thank you very much, Brother Colin. My name is Nixon Ganga, and it is indeed a privilege for me to be here. I think I can still remember myself smoking and doing all of that crazy thing that I used to do. Looking back at my life then and seeing what God has brought me to this place today, I am very privileged and honored to be here. So anyway, I don't want to take too long with that little introduction. So listening to some of the things that have been spoken about, I remember my life and I try to remember back substance abuse in my family. And my grandfather and my grandmother, they used to boil rum because I grew up in a place called Six Company, and down in the area I have a lot of local rum. They used to make babash down. So grew up around that and marijuana. I remember growing up around that and seeing my grandmother smoking. I remember asking my grandmother one time, I say, lady, why you don't stop smoking? You know, and she tell me, she say, you think you can stop that just so? I can't stop that just so, you know. And as you know, a child asking that question, I couldn't really comprehend what she was telling me. And I tell myself, I would never smoke. And while growing up, I used to see people going on the rum still, coming home, fall down in a drain, get up the next morning and go back on the rum still. These are the kind of things, you know, I grew up amongst. And as much as I resisted it, I don't know, at one point in time, I remember my family, my dad died when I was a year and a half, so I grew up with a stepfather. My mother was working, my stepfather and my mother, you know, it had a lot of arguments in my house, so, you know, I mean, I feel as a child, I crave love and attention, and I get it from my friends. And one of my friends, I remember, he introduced me to marijuana. And I, being the same person, tell myself, I'm not going to smoke, ended up starting to smoke marijuana. And then
what age was that? So, if you can remember.
I probably was about 15.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't, I think, I'm even sure if I was 15, I could be around 14, 15. But it was such a long time, and I started smoking marijuana, and the feeling was so nice, you know, for me then. And the day I did with my friends, and you know, we're feeling happy.
I want you to explain again. I'm going to stop you in between. I want you to explain that statement. I started smoking marijuana, and the feeling was so nice. What was the feeling so nice? Is it that the friends or the actual smoke, the actual marijuana in your head gave you a nice feeling? What it is exactly mean by the feeling was so nice?
Well, when I smoke marijuana, and well, me and all of us smoke marijuana, we laughing at everything, we laughing at nothing, we appetite open, when I tell you you're eating, unlike rum, because I mean to say we grew up amongst rum, so we know about drinking rum, I do like that, you know, when you drink rum, you're vomiting and all kind of thing, bad feeling and all kind of thing to those who, I know some of them never experienced that, but real bad feeling and all kind of thing with alcohol. So I didn't like the alcohol, I couldn't handle alcohol, but the marijuana, I mean to say when you drink rum, you're vomiting, but when you smoke marijuana, anyway, when you smoke marijuana, you find yourself eating plenty. So you
is that something that you will find, or is that something that everyone experiences when they smoke marijuana?
No, that's
I'm asking you this from that point of view. I want to get a general understanding. More people may be listening to us who want to find out what these guys or what these folks getting when they smoke this weed, boy. They really can't relate to it because they have not experienced it. And so I want you to share with us briefly what exactly is the feeling. It's a nice, relaxed, exciting, good feeling that you get when you smoke it, or is it something that is just lost your mind and you're out of the world? What is it really goes on?
Well, you don't lose your mind like you're out of the world. But to the question that you now ask, if generally you just feel hungry and you just, it's like, you just feel like if you have some kind of gremlin inside of you. Yeah, I'm telling you, you eat out everything in the house.
Okay.
You will cook and you will eat out. I tell you, the kind of food I see, I used to shock and amaze myself, the kind of food I see tonight. But and you're getting big.
But you're eating.
Yeah, but you're eating.
Okay.
You know, that was the nice thing. Sometimes we get up to go to work. We cutting cane and things, we get up to go to work. And we do so now, we smoke some weed, and we eat out all the food, and we say, we are going to work. We're going to cook again. So we just cooking and eating and laughing.
So,
it's like...
And the laughter and the excitement, where's that coming from? You're laughing at everything because of what? You've seen everything as a fun, you've seen everything as a joke. Why just use it?
I don't know.
It's a happy feeling?
For me, I am not a psyche.
Psychologists, yeah.
But I know from my experience, I don't know. I see one of my cousins, he lied down on the ground and laughing at what I don't know. I can't tell you what he was laughing at, and he laughing in a sense that I wonder what this man laughing at.
So then I mean, we cannot say because we're not trained to make any conclusion, but if someone is not a normal, it's not a natural human behavior to do that, so then obviously the person is not acting normal. So it means that they are now in an abnormal phase in their mind, meaning that the marijuana, therefore, is interfering with their normal procedure, the normal process of life. So then it cannot be something that is good if it's interfering with your normal logical processes.
Okay, but that was just the beginning.
Yeah.
After some time smoking, because I started there, but I smoked for 6 years. So after is like certain phase and certain periods, after a while I find myself not wanting to eat. So I'm smoking weed now and I'm not wanting to eat. Now
So you moved from eating plenty to not wanting to eat at all?
I moved from laughing all the time to not laughing at all.
And from not wanting to eat at all?
And it's like I sit down and I, sometimes I don't know if maybe the people here are wrong, but I believe that these things affect your mood according to your moods and probably what's going on with you at the moment. So anyway, there would be times that they would smoke and laugh and things, but during the course of time, as Richard was talking about people who ended up in prison, I remember myself taking drugs, taking weed and things from people and selling, and these guys talking and bragging about who they kill, who they chop, and who they do this. And I as a young person under them, and one asking me, small man, you think you could kill somebody? We want to carry on a robbery. And I have a vendetta against my stepfather. I say, the day I get a gun in my hand, I go and kill you. So when I look at my life, I see how I could end up in prison. But thank God that
would you have blamed, let's say that happened, you would have connected that prison experience to the drugs and the group of folks you were living with? Would you have connected it to that, or would you have connected it to this vendetta that you had for your stepfather? Were they connected, or would you have made that connection, or was two different things?
Really and truly, like sometimes I just notice that we always find ourselves blaming the wrong thing. We don't take responsibility for our own action. And if that had happened, so I probably would have blamed the wrong thing. And me being a Christian now, I could see that was just the enemy messing with my mind then. So moving along to what really helped me to overcome this.
Yeah, briefly share that with us.
Right. I accepted Christ. And when I accepted Christ, I started to go to church. And one of my cousins, I think this is a really, really important thing. One of my cousins, she showed me love and affection that I really needed as a young person, because really and truly, this is something that I sought, love and affection. And really and truly, I think my parents wanted to give me it, but I wasn't ready for it. And it has some of them, they don't even know how to express themselves. And I accepted Christ, and I started to go to church with her. And she kind of like kept on that shoeing for a while, and then after I started to go to next church that was closer to home, and I leave out that church because I find people was watching me in a kind of way. And then I started to go to this church and I find people watching me in a kind of way, because really and truly, coming out from the streets and the life I used to live, I didn't really have much. And I stopped going to church, but I always remember plenty of the old ones in church, I mean to say they like me, and they tell me, listen, Nixon, don't ever stop going to church. And as I said in that testimony that I gave, I proved that to be right, because I left church and I went back and I started to smoke marijuana, because I stopped smoking marijuana for maybe a couple of months. I can't really remember exactly. And then I catch myself and I started back to go to church, and I stopped it again, because being in church, you're being around people who don't smoke, people who probably overcome it and they share it with you, and they kind of love that it is up in church, and the brotherhood and thing.
Yeah.
So I personally, people have asked me, because Nixon, how you stop? And as Richard and this one I said, it have to be voluntary, and it's a lot of hard work. And I just tell people, I say, you're going to look at talk church, how much I want, and you're going to stop. You know what I mean? Because this is the place where I really come, and I know I really helped it. It wasn't entirely, it was God, and God led me to church. And
you were able to find some kind of solution right there, some kind of answer to that addiction by connecting with church and the people in church and getting an experience with God and so on.
yeah.
I endorse that a whole lot, and I want to also reinforce two things that Brother Nixon shared. One is that what drove him to his addiction early in his life was that absence of love and affection and attention from his family in his home. And I want to endorse that to those of you who are looking at us tonight, your parents, maybe friends, maybe someone who in the home, maybe a young person, you're not getting the attention from your father, from your mother, from your siblings, and you may feel that let me connect with folks from the street, or let me connect with folks who are doing negative activity just for the attention. We all are looking for affection. We all need this attention. We all need this love and this attention. And sometimes when you're not getting it, the devil uses that vacuum to drive you to do negative things. We want to encourage you, like Brother Nixon said in his conclusion, find yourself among some people who are positive, and you will get the love and affection, but you will also get positive behaviors and positive attitudes inside of that as well, as what will help him to come out of his addiction. Time is quickly running on us. Thanks, Brother Nixon, for sharing. You know, we again have so much more we could hear from each of us, but we want to engage all of us in the session tonight, and so we have one more perspective we want to bring from Brother Gregory. He's going to share with us in a few minutes how it is substance abuse addiction can interfere with family life, and I want to give him that opportunity to do so right away.
Pleasant good night to each and every one of you. Living in a home where there's addiction, and more so your father being addicted to not just marijuana but cocaine, is definitely a challenge. I don't think that there's anybody who goes through that process and say, no, it's a normal thing. It's a normal thing to deal with. Nowhere, no how. It is a normal thing. Right? Now, the interesting thing about it is that my dad was very talented. Talented with his hands, talented with his mouth, the ability to speak, the ability to cause people to just do anything that, you know. And that would be people who don't know him. You know? So, it's not that he had to go around people, you know. He could have woke and get his money for his drugs. But because it is an addiction, you don't want to. It's easier to rob somebody. And all the years, right? My father got the amount of jail that he made, hardly ever hear him get locked up with a smoke, or he get locked up for some piece of drugs or something like that. Most of the time, it's for robbing somebody, or outsmarting somebody, or scheming somebody. Because why? You're addicted to something, right? And he had ability. At one point he spent, I think it was 3 years in prison. And he came out from prison, got back his government work, and worked in government. My mom, my dad separated. And when he came back out, he came to where we were living now, because the house that we were in, he sold it. And people say, take this, take that, leave this, leave that, leave the next. Carry that, this is ours. And we had to move, run, because he was violent. And you're mixing violence with ability and drugs, all put together in one. It is a real pillar that you have to break. It's a real problem that you have. And when he came out for about 2 years, living by this one and staying by that one, because he didn't have a place to go. And he came home and he asked my mother, he said, "B, listen, I want to come back home." And mommy said, she said, "Gregory and Gary, what do you want to do? You want to accept him back? That's all he willing to help himself. Let us not stand in the way of that. If that's what it takes, let's see how it goes." And he stayed an additional 2 years. The man keep a match against drugs. He did a lot. He well learned.
Instead of the 2 years that he came back,
Yes.
he did all that.
Yes,
Yeah.
he well learned when it comes to the word. The ability to preach and the ability to speak and an anointing that he had on his life. And yet still, he went back. With love, with a place to stay, with attention, with everything you had. And went back on drugs. And went back on drugs.
That's an amazing thing. Let me interject right there, because that's a very serious point you're raising. Because we are just stating that drove some folks to substance abuse was lack of those things. And you were saying that he had attention, he had a family loving him, he had a place, he had a job, he had money, he had ability, he had skills, he had talents, and yet the drugs was the dominant thing in his life. That's an amazing thing. I want to ask you, in your experience, because you probably may not have known because he's your father, maybe older than you, that substance abuse thing started within, how early in his life did he take up that? Was something when he started family life, or after, or before he started family life?
When he started family life.
So that substance abuse was not before?
No.
Oh, that's an interesting thing.
I asked him, I said, where's the situation with you on this? How do you end up on this? He said, you know what? Somebody gave him a black cigarette. I said,
A black cigarette, explain that.
Give me a cigarette with cocaine in it. Unknowing to you. Yes, unknowing to you. So you would smoke it and you would get the sensation. So I said, well, okay. You end up with a black cigarette. You find out it was a black cigarette. I said, wait then. He said, I beat the man who gave me it. Because he was violent.
So he got this black cigarette unknowing that it was black at the time?
Yes.
And he smoked it.
Right.
And then he realized it was black, or somebody told him it was black?
Well, I guess he probably realized after.
And then we realized that he went and beat the man and so on.
Right. So I said, so why continue? Now that you know that it is wrong, now that you know it's something, you know. He said, because the first time you smoke, you will get a sensation. And the sensation that you will get, you will never in life get it again. He said, but you will keep going and going and going after it, looking for that particular sensation. But listen to this. Brother Nixon, in the situation that he was in, believed that as a result of a lack of love and attention, put him in the position that he went to. Nothing wrong with that. Different people react different ways and different things happen to different people. But think about this for yourself. It's very hard to get addicted to reading the Bible. You have to force yourself to read. And the easiest thing to do is to forget to read the Bible. You have to get addicted. It's very hard to get addicted to praying. You have to force yourself to pray. And it's very easy to forget to pray and sleep away. But when it comes to the wrong thing, it's very easy to get addicted to the wrong thing. Because you come to realize now that, hey, it's the devil behind you. So even though you're getting the love, you're getting the affection, you're getting the attention, you have your job, you have everything, you have no reason to go on the road, you have no reason, you drop off your friends and everything. But because the devil behind you, you go back to the drugs. After 6 years plus, without it, you just take up yourself and decide, that's it. And you know what happened? The last encounter we had, I was in Bible school, extension in Plumita Church. And I had to leave my job to deal with this because my father, being violent that he was, I have to stay home with my mommy because he beaten up my mother right through. And I have to stay home and breaks fight. There are times when I would be nailed up on the wall with a long knife up my throat, stick up my neck. Because you're going for 3 and 4 days, you're sure when he coming home, you're sure what attitude he coming home in, you're sure what mood he coming in, and as they hear, don't you jumpy so because you wonder if you come home this so, and you're peeping out and you're watching the sea. It's a very uneasy life to live. It's a very uncomfortable life to live. because of, not the fact that my father don't love me, but because of the addiction that he had. You know what? At a certain point in time, my mother and father are talking for years, them are talking. But you make one mistake and come around my mother, and you'll see when my father will show up just. That is between both of them. It doesn't mean that he don't love her, but because of the addiction, the things that he's doing, it was a problem, and it makes it hard to deal with when you're under addiction. You have problems and situations like that. It takes a divine intervention to come off cocaine, to come off marijuana completely and say, hey, I make a general turnaround, 360 degrees. This don't affect me no more. This is what happened to Brother Nixon. It happened to plenty of people.
There are a number of folks. We have like, you can always remember this guy who came up here and shared with us several times. So his name Troy, very guy who was similar to your father, or probably even worse. And his experience, same skill, well not same, but a number of similarities to your father with skills and abilities and church experiences and so on, and skills in calling people and doing world strategies and connected to the drugs. And his experience, however, was a divine intervention and something that was able to transform his life totally. In your father case, it is a different case that require much more discussion, probably a deeper discussion and longer discussion that we will probably have to go into at another time. But we appreciate that experience so much that you shared with us, Brother Gregory. In that I am sure what you are sharing there with us, many people in our society today, many people looking at us and who may look at this this program that we are putting on here tonight, will and would be sharing or would be experiencing that kind of situation where some member of the family, sometimes not the daddy, sometimes a son, sometimes an uncle, sometimes a mother, sometimes have been overtaken by drugs and they're living that uneasy, frustrating, torturous, shaky kind of experience. I want you to share with us very quickly because we are out of time. That experience of growing up with that kind of uneasy, shaky, unstable, and yet you have to be kind of protector family. What advice would you give to someone looking at us, some young person, somebody, some family like that, who may be going through that similar experience? How can they cope with it so that they can not be affected? Because in your case, you were not affected by the drugs. You didn't go into it, you didn't take it, you didn't follow that path. What advice can you give to someone looking at us quickly who can experience that lifestyle but still lead a positive life like you are doing?
I remember one time a certain person said, I'm giving them 2 months with that church thing, and they'll give them what I had. And that word remain in my mind till now, and I know the person, I'm just not going to call their names, but you know what happened? Motivation to do good. The fact that I was in church, my mother always behind me, even though my mother not going to church, hey, find yourself in church. You can be with 1 foot inside and 1 foot outside. There's nothing in terms of ability within myself that I could have done, because my mother grew us up as a single parent for most of our life. 2 boys living in Beach, where only marijuana is, and we never smoke one day, or drink, or get drunk, or fall over the side of the road, or curse people and then, no. We never
That's
did
amazing
that.
from coming from the background where you are.
And you know what? A purpose within my heart, that the things that my father did to people, I am not going to do it. And the tears that my father made my mother cry, I am not going to do it. I don't want my mother to worry about me not one single day. And I look to God and I pray and I beg God, Lord, help me not to turn out like this, because you know what? They say like father, like son, and they just given me 2 months, and I waiting to see all who given me 2 months and all these things, and all who waiting to see the outcome.
Yeah.
Hey, here am I today as a result of Jesus Christ in my life. Give God a chance in your life.
That's excellent. That's a very beautiful, powerful note that we can end on tonight, that says to us that in the face of addiction, in the face of frustration, in the face of drugs affecting a family very strong, that we can make it, and we can make it strong, motivated because of the love and the connection with Jesus Christ. That's the message we want to leave with you tonight, with no uncertain terms and with no apologies, because we are speaking that message from experiences, live, real experiences that we have lived, that we have seen, and that we continue to see in the lives of many. We thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for sharing with us tonight on this addiction. We would probably not have exhausted the tip of this huge topic, but we are sure tonight we will have shared some stuff with you that would lead you to be encouraged to keep going and to keep fighting if you are fighting an addiction, and to seek some help, whether it is in a church or with some positive folks around, and most of all, like what Gregory shared with you tonight, go on your knees and ask God, the Father who created you, to help you, and He will indeed come and do so like He did for many people. Thanks again for sharing with us, and we want you to stay tuned for next Wednesday when you shall come to share something else with you. Thanks again, and have a very good night.